Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Inside the Club, podcast presented by the Salt Lake Tribune. This week we have another special guest. It's Utah Hockey Club forward Barrett Hayton, who's also just named the NHL's third star of the week. Barrett, thank you for joining. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. First player on the podcast, so I'm sure people will be very excited for this episode. But obviously everyone knows you on the Utah Hockey Club this year as a Coyotes, but kind of wanted to learn about your earliest hockey memory and what kind of drew you to the game initially.
Yeah, wow, hard hitter off the bat. First hockey memory, I think probably when I was really, really young, maybe 3 years old or so. I remember putting skates on, and my dad played and coached and stuff, so he was around the game a lot, and I remember him skating me around, kind of his arms under my arms like this, and just my feet gliding on the ice, and just how fun it was, and yeah, crazy. That's whatever, probably 22 years ago or something like that, and here we are.
Did it click immediately? Like, did you like it? I know some guys say they hated the ice at first or they hated skating, but when were you kind of like, okay, this might be my niche?
I always remember loving it. I think my mom's got a funny story. My dad was coaching, and I used to like go to the games when I was really young, like with my mom or whatever, and I used to like hate it, I guess. But I think I was like really young there. All my memories are fond, and yeah, I loved it from the second I got into it.
Was there a point in your youth hockey career that you kind of thought, like, this is more than a hobby, I could really go somewhere with this? Or was it kind of just always like, I will be a hockey player?
Yeah, I think it was just always like it was what I loved to do the most in the world, and growing up, I watched a ton of like NHL hockey and idolized guys, and that's just always kind of what I pictured, and um, I just yeah didn't imagine anything else, to be honest, and I think it was just in like um, a basic thing, and it was never too serious when I was young, where it was like, oh, this whatever job type thing or take it like that. It was just I always did it because I loved it, and um, loved winning and competing and all that. So yeah, I think every guy has a different story with that. But that's kind of
Canadian guy, just what was it like growing up in that hockey environment? And then on the flip side, being in Utah now, a place that's kind of trying to grow that craze and passion around the game.
yeah, definitely growing up in Canada and Ontario. There's such like a hockey culture. I'm from a smaller town, about 2 hours from Toronto, like 75, 80,000 people, and definitely a huge hockey city. As cliche as it sounds, I had like an outdoor rink beside my house and played nonstop, and it's been cool. Obviously, I was in Arizona for 5 years, and coming here, kind of getting back to more of that feel back home with the climate, and yeah, it's been fun. Obviously, the game's growing here in Utah, and it's been fun seeing the fans grow love for the game, and the nonstop energy has been cool.
And just extending on your Canadian roots, you got to captain that World Juniors team in 2020, game tying goal in the third period, en route to the gold medal. Just what did that experience mean to you ahead of, your extended NHL career?
Yeah, that was one of my fondest hockey memories. Growing up, kind of to go back to the Canadian thing, the World Juniors is so big up there. It's almost like a religion. You have Christmas Day, and as a kid growing up, you're almost more excited for Boxing Day, the start of World Juniors. And I always remember watching that, the New Year's Eve games, and obviously the gold medal games. That's so big, and that might have been one of my first kind of hockey dreams. It was to play in that tournament and win gold, and pretty cool to have that come true.
You remember where you were when they told you were going to be captain of that group, kind of the face of that team?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'm not sure, honestly, because I was over in Czech Republic. We had a little pre-tournament camp in like Mississauga, Ontario,
Hmm.
and then flew over. I want to say it was over in Europe somewhere, but I don't know for sure.
And that goal you scored, obviously, if people watch World Juniors, Canadian fans, they always remember it. But just what was going through your head when you saw that go in?
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy game. We were down. 3-1 in the third, and our power play had been really good all tournament, and we got that opportunity there. And yeah, I don't know if I felt a thing when I went in. It was just pure excitement, and yeah, crazy moment.
You talked about just wanting to win, and obviously that's a big stage. Do you think that helped the transition to the NHL at all, that you had played with that type of pressure before, you were taking on full seasons in Arizona?
Yeah, I think that's such a great tournament. It's a high level of hockey. It's kind of most of those guys are coming from junior college, and it's kind of a step above that. So it's cool playing at that pace, and obviously playing in big games when it's all on the line. That's what we love as players, and it's definitely a cool almost experience that kind of prepares you for the next level in some ways.
And you make the jump to the NHL. Just from when you first entered the league till now, what do you feel like is the biggest development in your game, on or off the ice, mentally, physically? Because I know you're still young, but you're almost kind of the older guys in that forward group at this point.
Yeah, I think everything's changed, to be honest. Like coming in as a 19-year-old, um, you're just kind of trying to figure it all out, trying to learn fast, trying to do whatever you can to have a positive impact on games. And I think you just learn with the experience, kind of what it takes to be consistent. I know we talked earlier about that, the consistency. I think that's such a big thing and something of a lot of value in the NHL through 82 game schedule and postseason as well. So I think a lot of areas of my game, every area of my game has improved, but I think the consistency is one that I've definitely put a lot of focus on.
What is that like at 19 years old when most kids your age are in college or still in school and you're in the NHL? Were you living with any of the veterans back there, and just what's that like as such a young kid?
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to Jason Demers. I lived with him in Arizona for a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, like you say, um, just such like a foreign thing. You know, you go in there, there's guys that are married, guys with kids, just such like a 180 from junior. Like you're just used to going to high school, playing hockey, and that being pretty much it. So I was fortunate to have JD. Like that was like COVID time too and stuff. So
Hmm.
uh, yeah, it's just a crazy whirlwind. But yeah, he took me in, and yeah, thankful. Him and I still keep in touch. Obviously, it's been cool seeing him do all his stuff. I think most guys in that locker room knew he was definitely suited for that and would do a great job with it. So it's been cool seeing him have success.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
That year, did you have a welcome to the NHL moment where, I mean, you obviously know you're in the NHL, but where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, here we go.
Um, I didn't really have like a black and white one. I think growing up, Sidney Crosby was a guy I idolized being a Canadian kid. Obviously, watching him score that Olympic golden goal and all that. So first time playing Pittsburgh and playing him, being a centerman, taking faceoffs against him was definitely something that's like kind of a I guess pinch me moment type thing. More so kind of after the game when you think about it. When you're in the game, it's just another game and another competition.
Yeah. And then going to this season in Utah, more recently with Dylan Gunther out with injury, you've been skating with Michelli and Doan, and the point streak has started then. I know we've talked about how you've felt good about your game for a couple months now, but just what's it been like skating with those two, and how has it maybe helped all three of you in terms of tangible production?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's been good playing with those guys. Both two guys that I'm good buddies with, and Michelli I've known for a long time. He and I are the same age and played against each other in some international competition, and uh, yeah, just known him for forever. I actually during COVID when the season was delayed, I went over to Finland and played on his team. So I was over in his neck of the world for a bit, and
I was gonna ask, I saw that in your elite prospects. I was like,
yeah,
what was that? So you went over to Finland and
yeah.
just
So it
played
was,
with him?
yeah, so it was after the bubble. So after that, there was like a stretch of time. in like September where the season was delayed. We didn't know when we were going to start. It was just there was no date, and
Mhm.
um, being young, like I hadn't played a lot of hockey in the last for like 6, 8 months, and I wanted to go play. And um, yeah, Michelli was over there. Valimaki was actually also on that team. Bill Armstrong had a connection with that team. Um, from someone he worked with in St. Louis. So it was just a great fit to go over there. It was unfortunate their season actually got shut down because of COVID, like
Oh no.
8 games in or something crazy. So it ended up it ended up being a bit of bit too bad on that side, but it was definitely a cool experience. And yeah, so Chelly and Valley over there were my teammates.
That's really funny. I didn't realize that. But
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
small
crazy.
world.
Eh?
And yeah, Valimaki was saying he played with DeSimone too. It feels like all of you guys have random connections
Yeah,
from
there's a
that.
lot of connections in the hockey world.
Yeah. Just to close it out, I have a couple quick hitters, superlative type things too. But number 27, is there any reason why you chose that, or just kind of random?
Yeah, that kind of goes back to my dad. He played and he played for like the junior team in my hometown, the Pete's, and when I was in minor hockey, it was also like the Pete's organization or whatever. And um, he uh, he had a jersey with 27 on it. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So I'd always worn 27, and uh, in Arizona, I was actually retired for Temple Newman.
Mhm.
Uh, so I went with 29 over there, and then coming to Utah, new franchise, got the opportunity to bring it back.
Oh, there you go. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I know you mentioned Crosby as someone you looked up to, but was there any other player, could be him, that you kind of modeled your game after as a kid?
yeah. Him, Jonathan Toews was another guy I really admired. Those Chicago teams were so good, and he was such a big part of that. So those are kind of my two guys growing up.
Got it. And then just looking around the league, favorite arena, road arena to play in, or least favorite as well?
Favorite? Um, that is a good question. Maybe MSG in New York, just such like a cool arena, the history in there. It's pretty cool to play there. And least favorite? Um, I don't really know if I have a least favorite, to be honest.
Any
Yeah,
day in the
we'll
NHL is
leave
a
it.
good one.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, good answer. Best dressed on the team, in your opinion?
Best dressed. Um, I guess I'll give it to Kels. He wears some crazy stuff that I wouldn't necessarily always go with, but I do think he has good stuff.
Keller was actually saying Bukestad got the aux recently in the locker room. Just in your opinion, who would you prefer to be on the music, be on the playlist on a game day?
Uh, I'll go Bobby Bortuzzo. I think yeah, I trust him with anything, and he's got good taste in music, knows kind of the vibe we're going for, and yeah, I'll go Baba.
Just with him and more the veteran guys that you guys brought in the off season, what's it like having that presence in the locker room? Ian Cole too. I know Sergachev's not that old, but just that type of player.
Yeah, I think there's just so much value in those guys, their experience, and you talk about Bobo, one of the best guys around. I think every one of his teammates throughout the years would say the same thing. Um, and just so much value in his knowledge for the game, locker room presence, all that stuff. Colsey, same thing. He's won. Also, all these guys have won a Stanley Cup, and that goes without saying the value that brings. But they all do it their own way and bring their own value to kind of the puzzle piece of the locker room. And they've been huge pieces for us and help us younger guys so much.
Got it. And then lastly, closing it out, what's been the best part about Utah aside from hockey, as you're kind of an official resident now, like 6 months in?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of great stuff. Obviously, it's beautiful in the mountains, and I think the one thing that I've really enjoyed, and I know a bunch of the guys have as well, is the connection with the Jazz. I've been a NBA fan for a while and followed that, and it's been cool kind of getting um, around their team, around games, even just spending time with their coach and GM, and them giving us kind of an insight into their world. It's been fun, and yeah, just fortunate to kind of have that connection, obviously with Ryan Smith owning both and treating us all so well. It's been awesome.
Do you have a home team or is it Jazz now?
We'll go with Jazz now. I honestly, I'm more so like players and stuff
Hmm.
like that. I've never, I guess technically I'm a Raps fan by location,
Okay.
but I've never been too diehard on an NBA team, more so just kind of players and performances and stuff.
Got it. So we'll stick with Jazz. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well,
exactly.
thank you so much. That wraps up the interview portion of this podcast. And Barrett, thank you again for joining us this week.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Another big thank you to forward Barrett Hayton for joining Inside the Club this week. I hope everyone enjoyed the interview and getting to know one of Utah's top players a little bit better. So another big thank you to him for coming on. So now this is usually the Q&A portion of the podcast, but there's kind of been a lot of breaking news around the team in the last week or so. So I thought this could just be a quick news segment and then we will go back to Q&A next week. But the biggest chatter on the team hasn't necessarily been the games or performance. It has been news around the team name and the process in finding a final team identity. So I'm sure everyone had read the articles a couple weeks ago from both the Salt Lake Tribune and Ryan Miller from KSL talking about the U.S. Trademark Office rejecting Utah Hockey Club's trademark application for Yetis. And they said that there would be a likelihood of confusion in the market because of the Yeti Coolers Company, that the Yeti Coolers Company has the trademark to be able to put that logo and that name on t-shirts and cups and sweatshirts, basically every form of merchandise that Utah Hockey Club would also like to use for their team and to create their new brand next year. So that obviously posed an issue. And I think everyone was speculating where they went from there. And this week, Smith Entertainment Group showed full transparency in the process, and they said they've actually been working with Yeti Coolers far before the trademark was rejected by the trademark office, that they saw this coming, so they got ahead of it and had been in conversation with Yeti Coolers before the trademark got rejected on January 9th about trying to strike a coexistence deal. So essentially, even if the trademark office said there's likelihood of confusion, we're refusing this trademark, Smith Entertainment Group and Utah Hockey Club had the option to appeal within 3 months and prove that why there wouldn't be confusion in the market, or go straight to the source, Yeti Coolers and their leadership, and see if they, without the trademark office involved, could create a coexistence deal, meaning they could both use the trademark in their own realms and they could both own the mark and make their own separate products, but kind of have joint ownership over it. And ultimately, Yeti Coolers decided they did not want to become a partner with Utah Hockey Club. We don't know if that meant that they would sponsor the team or anything like that. It was more just them agreeing that the Utah Yetis could exist in the same commercial market as Yeti Coolers. So their leadership said, no, we don't want to do that. Smith Entertainment Group said they had been in talks with them for a while and that the NHL also jumped in to help them because Yeti Coolers is a partner with the NHL this season. They've been making tumblers and different drinkware with a bunch of NHL logos on it. So people, including myself, thought that maybe that partnership would help push things along, but it did not. And just because of how long and tough that legal process would be, Smith Entertainment Group decided to pivot, drop the Yeti name completely, and kind of do a new iteration of this naming process. So this comes to where the fans, all of you guys, come in, and I'm sure everyone has probably voted and heard about it and is excited to have a say in the team name. But when the team decided to drop Yeti, they chose a new final three. Initially, it was Utah Hockey Club, Utah Mammoth, and Utah Wasatch. And at the 4 home games last week, Utah had 4 games at the Delta Center before their 3-game road trip before the 4-nation break. They had iPads at every level of the arena, two people manning the iPads to make sure, the secrecy of it was held up. Fans had to put their phones away, and they had fans vote on which name and logo combination that they liked better. Obviously, everyone knows Ryan Smith owns the team, Qualtrics, Smith Entertainment Group. They've really relied on fan survey to kind of form the identity of this team when it comes to music and in-arena experience and things of that nature with their surveys. So they're carrying that over into fan voting for this name. But the survey basically shows you the names, it shows you potential logos, it shows you how it would look on the Jumbotron, and it has you rate them. There's a few different questions, and at the end it says, after seeing all of this, which is your favorite? And fans choose. So that happened on the first home game of that homestand. But fans, there was a lot of fan feedback that Wasatch was not in the final six of the last iteration of the voting, that Outlaws was, and no one really understood what Wasatch really meant. It seemed like the Utah Hockey Club logo and the Utah Wasatch logo offered on the survey were the same and almost looked somewhat like a reused Yeti logo, people were saying. So I think it just wasn't, one, a name that people ever voted for, and two, maybe the branding wasn't exactly what people were expecting for Wasatch. So Smith Entertainment Group heard that feedback, and in 24 hours, they switched Wasatch out of the running and put Outlaws in. So now the top three are Utah Outlaws, Utah Mammoth, and Utah Hockey Club. And Utah Outlaws replaced Wasatch on the survey. So now numbers for Outlaws and logos for that fans will be able to choose from as well. So it's been a much more complicated process involving the fans, but I think that is the most exciting part about all of this. Coach Trini said it's an honor for us to be able next year to wear a name and a brand that our fans picked. And I think Ryan and Ashley at the beginning of this whole process, and Chris Armstrong too, said this is Utah's team, this is a community project, and they really wanted people to be part of it. So I think going the extra mile to make sure people feel like they have a say is going to make people more excited when the real jersey comes out and everything like that. But those are the final three. They said that this could be the final stage of the voting process. It started with Ryan Smith sending out a tweet and thousands of people responded with what they wanted. And then that narrowed down to voting for the top 20, that narrowed down to voting for the top 6. And here we are at the top 3. So it's very possible that from the 4 nights of voting, they expected 15,000 people to be at each game. So around 60,000 people voting if everyone gets the chance to do it. They believe they can have a 95% or up kind of confidence rate in that is the opinion of the general public with their methodology that they were explaining. I'm not completely sure how it all works, but they said it is possible that this round of voting could determine the final team name, that they don't know if they'll do another round where it's the top 2, but it seems like from initial reactions that Mammoth was really taking the lead when it was Wasatch and Utah Hockey Club as the other options, but now that Outlaws in the mix, who knows if it'll be a tight race between those two. But yeah, that's where the name stands now. The team said they are still committed to announcing the new team name, identity, merchandise, jerseys, all of those things after this season ends. And they said that there should be no delays in that. And I asked, will the fan store on opening night of the 2025-26 season be able to have merchandise for the new brand since this process, we're running up on the end of the season here? And they said they have great partnerships in the NHL and Fanatics, and they think that they are on track and on the same path in all of those regards. So from what Smith Entertainment Group is saying, it seems like even though they had to divert from Yeti and kind of change gears with this process, nothing will be delayed for fans. There will be a team name after this season, and there will be jerseys and merchandise and everything of that sort. So pretty crazy. I appreciate Smith Entertainment Group and the team kind of making it public, because I feel like obviously the trademark website is open to the public and you can go on and see what's been rejected and what's not. And there was just a lot of buzz about it. So to come out and say, this is what happened, now we're involving the fans, let's move forward. So those are the latest updates on that. And then obviously on Twitter, on the Tribune website, when the final name's announced, any updates that come after this week and moving forward, we will have up, and we will keep you guys updated for the rest of the season until this team has an official identity. So that was one of the news updates. And then quickly, I saw a lot of questions about Dylan Guenther and Sean Durzi. So I just wanted to give an injury update for those two. Both of them are skating in non-contact jerseys with the team, which is a positive, that they're practicing with the team. Non-contact jerseys are yellow. You can probably see in the photos we post on Twitter, but basically means you can participate in practice in the drills, but you can't be touched. So if it's a checking drill or, if they're on the penalty kill, they're not going into corners. Their teammates know not to go full speed ahead on them, but they are on the ice for the entirety of practice. And that started this week. Guenther is working back from a lower body injury, and coach said this week that he's day-to-day, which was kind of surprising because usually a non-contact jersey signals that you're probably a week or so away or more, but it's good news that they think he's day-to-day. And Sean Durzi, coach said, will be practicing with the team up until the Four Nations Faceoff break, that he won't be available before that time. So in the next stretch of 6-5 games, he will not be available, and that they'll reevaluate him after that break. So those are two really strong players for Utah. Obviously, Guenther was leading them in scoring before he got hurt. Sean Durzi fans have only saw a really small sample size this season because he got hurt 3 games into the season, but he'll be a really big factor in shoring up the blue line. So those would be 2 big names to get back, and it looks like they are around the corner. So that is a positive and a thing Utah hockey fans should be excited for. Lastly, speaking of the Four Nations Faceoff, a couple updates with that. Juuso Välimäki at practice this week is breaking in his Team Finland gear. He had a few funny quotes, but he was saying he hates getting new gear. It usually takes him weeks to be able to feel comfortable in it. They gave him new pants, gloves, and skates. He said he usually keeps his skates for the entire season, which, to put in perspective, some guys like to switch skates weekly or monthly. So he said his skates last year had holes in the toes and he could feel the air blowing through it when he skated, but once he gets his equipment, he likes to keep it that way. So he's having a tough time just breaking everything in, but obviously he said he was very excited to wear the Finland colors. He played for that national team, won gold when he was younger, so he will be heading out to represent that team, as well as Olli Maatta, come the Four Nations break. So they have training days on February 10th and 11th, I believe, with their teams before the tournament starts in Montreal. And then there's a couple games there, and then they'll go to TD Garden in Boston to play the semis and finals. So this is a really exciting thing. If new hockey fans haven't heard of it before, that's totally normal because this is the first year the NHL is doing it. It's a best-on-best tournament that's featuring 4 teams, Canada, United States, Sweden, and Finland. And they picked obviously per country, the best players in the league for those teams based on where they're from. And it's an in-season tournament. And it's kind of a preview to the Olympics if you think about it, because these guys will obviously try out for the Olympic teams, and showing what you can do to play for your country in a best-on-best tournament similar to the format of the Olympics beforehand is a big upper hand for them, and Välimäki kind of talked about that as well. So those are the 2 Utah Hockey Club players that will be in the Four Nations tournament and will be representing both Finland and Utah Hockey Club on a very big stage. They announced the jersey numbers today. Olli Maatta will be wearing number 3 for Finland, and Välimäki will be wearing number 6, which are different from their Utah Hockey Club numbers, but you're allowed to do that because it's technically not an NHL team. So that's something to definitely look forward to. I know the break in the schedule where it's like 10 or 12 days without games can be daunting for diehard fans, but there is a really exciting tournament, historic tournament happening during that time. So I would really suggest tuning in for that. And the Salt Lake Tribune will have on-the-ground coverage of the last 3 games, both semifinal games and the final at TD Garden. I will be there, so we'll definitely have some feature content on Välimäki and Maatta and just their journey with that team and how Finland finishes. So keep tabs on that, and hockey is not going away. You can still watch that while Utah has its quick hiatus, and then they'll come back and finish out the season. So I think that's the end of the news updates for now. Next week, I'll have an extended Q&A so we can answer more tangible on-ice questions, but thought it would be interesting to dive into some of the more off-ice topics surrounding this team. So that will do it for episode 4 of Inside the Club. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys next week.